Devon, who's part of Maria's team. So welcome to you all. Welcome to Children's Scrutiny. So just to remind those joining remotely to mute their microphones and to turn off their camera unless speaking. Please be reminded that the meeting is being live streamed. All speakers are asked to ensure that they are talking into their microphone. We're not expecting a fire alarm. Should the fire alarm sound, please exit the room, follow the exit signs to the right, and please congregate on the Cover lawn. Please ensure you address everyone by their full title of councillor, no first names, please. I think that's one for me, really. Thank you. The chair assumes that members have read all the papers in advance of the committee. Therefore, cabinet members and officers are asked to keep their introductions to the items brief, raising only key points to the committee. And a final reminder not to hold individual discussions while others are speaking. It's the housekeeping. And item 1 is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We've got apologies from Councillors Richardson, Bell, Barry and Tilsley, and we have 2 members online, Councillors Rousell and Carson.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Obviously, just to remind you to declare an interest at the appropriate time. Not already done so. Minutes, there are 2 sets of minutes to sign. Budget scrutiny on the 22nd of April. That was our morning meeting. January. I've got to April, yeah. No. So yeah, sorry, start again then. So 2 sets of minutes to sign. That's the budget scrutiny on the 22nd of January, the morning session, and the ordinary committee meeting that took place in the afternoon. Can I have anybody happy to move those? Councillor Julian, seconded by Councillor Trail. And all those in favour? Thank you. I'll sign them at the end here. Thank you. Items requiring urgent attention, I have none. Chair's announcements, none on my list, but just to remind those of us that are attending the school visit, as soon as we finish this meeting, I believe there will be food laid on by the school, but we are a little bit struck by time, so we do need to be finished this morning by 12 or 12:30. 12 o'clock ideally, but hopefully we'll be fine. Thank you. Public participation, there are none received or indicated. So that moves us on to matters for consideration or review. So we are reviewing the, move myself forward. Sun Transformation Programme Strand 1, investing in Devon schools and by getting the basics right. So I guess Councillor Bickley, are you introducing this one? So I'll go over to you, Councillor Bickley. Desperately trying not to say Denise.
There we are. Okay. Nothing really to say about it. The report is here and welcome questions, really. Is that all right?
That's brilliant, because like I say, we've got the papers. Kelly, is there anything you would like to add before we fire any questions your way? And good morning.
Morning, Chair. Nothing to add. Happy to take questions.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Louise. Members, any questions? Councillor Hookway, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to say I fully support the policy, but I was a bit surprised that there were what I would call expected outcomes were not present within the policy. I think that for members who don't have a background in education, and I should declare at this point I'm a retired member of the National Educational Union, just in case that's important. But you know, when people look at this this policy, and particularly within schools, I think they will be wondering what are the expected outcomes. You know, perhaps we might use what are the measures of success and so on, and therefore what could what our school is expected to do and how they're supposed to work with this. And I think it's implicit within here, but it's not explicit. And I would just like to have something much more fundamental and clearly explained. So, for example, if you look at the paragraph, which is 318, if I can find it, which talks about the, how has it gone? Sorry, lost it. Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's right. So where it talks about financial recovery working into attendance and mentions a sum of £370,000, I think that's absolutely the right thing to be doing. But nevertheless, I think there should be an expected outcome that suggests that one of the aims of the policy is working towards achieving better value. Okay, as well as improving attendance, as well as seeing students with particular needs in the right place. So I have. So I fully support the policy, but would like our officers to consider inserting an additional paragraph of what expected outcomes might be. Thank you, Joe.
That's a good question. Something similar that I had written down. I don't know if Kelly, Julian, Denise, and Councillor Bickley.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. So just to take a step backward just a second. So this paper in front of you now is actually an update on strand 1 of our wider strand transformation programme rather than a policy in its own right. So it's given you an update on all of the work that is included within that strand. That strand is absolutely about getting the basics right. So it's about the enablers for the service to be able to improve outcomes and experiences for children and young people. So as part of the wider programme, there are key performance indicators linked to that, which haven't been specifically provided here, but that we can share with the committee. I think there are things in 3.19 linked to your specific point, Councillor Hookway, where we're looking for those outcomes set out there in terms of that particular area of work.
Christina?
Just a comment about the white paper and how the white paper and things that are in the white paper. Sorry, the white paper and how things that are proposed in the white paper and how that fits in with this SEND transformation programme. Be interested to know because there's quite a lot in there.
Thank you. So a lot of the work within the SEND transformation programme already was based on an idea of what might come down from government in the white paper. We've had the white paper now, as you will know, and we'll be looking at our SEND transformation programme alongside the requirement from government for us to create a local reform plan. Those, as far as I'm concerned, should be one in the same thing. So that work has to happen by the summer. So we will be reviewing the transformation programme alongside that commission from government to create that plan.
And presumably that will come back to scrutiny when you've sort of aligned white paper up. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that would be certainly helpful.
We've got 14 weeks to put a plan together. So at the minute we need to map out the governance around that. So it would be good to share that with you and think about how that fits in with your expectations.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, and that's something we can pick up in the work programme later on this morning. Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sort of playing catch up. Unfortunately, this committee conflicts with my paid employment, so often I can't get here. But today I'm here because it doesn't conflict with that. I I suppose the first point, if I might, is a question on page 10 of the report. So this is the Getting the Basics Right programme update. You've got a RAG rating register there, Strand investing in Devon schools, and then you've got all your key milestones. Can you tell me what the blue is, please? There's no key for the blue.
Yeah, apologies. That means that that milestone has been met and it's completed.
Thank you very much. So reading through this, and again, I'm sort of playing catch up. I'm coming at this mostly from my role with the audit committee, because we are members constantly told, public are constantly told that the send costs are huge. And so I, coming into this, just need that assurance that all these things being done, that we're spending. It comes down to, are we spending wisely? Are we spending appropriately? Are we getting the most bang for our buck from our send expenditure? And, you know, when we then look later on at the risk register, that's awash with red. There are huge risks with send, and we've had the government kindly assisting us nationally with some funding, but we know that it's going to rack up pretty quickly again. I suppose the question is, how integrated are we looking at sending in conjunction with education generally? Because there are lots of schools in East Devon particularly, where the schools have barely 10, 20 pupils, but you have a building that's being kept open, a building that's being heated, insured, staffed, caretakered. And then at the same time, taking Millwater as a case in point, we're actually winding down services and saying we can't operate them, and we're moving people away out of East Devon into other parts of Devon. And how are we looking at a holistic view of all this? Because there's lots and lots of schools. Are we really looking at the overall picture and thinking actually you could move that to there? Because a lot of send needs a place. You know, it's not just a case of shipping children in buses hither and thither.
Councillor Hayward, I think we've sort of gone off the question, and possibly I just hold that, because I think the question is there, and I think.
With all due respect, Chair, this is getting the basics right. And reading this and the point that Councillor Hookway raised, these are a lot of these. There's nothing tangible from this. If you remember the public reading this, it's, you know, getting basics right, and it's the most complicated report. It's not basics. This is very convoluted. And if you're trying to convince people who are paying the council tax that we are doing the best, and then they read the risk register and they see all those risks, and we know we're making progress, and it's not denigrating any of my colleagues, but it's, are we getting the basics right? And are we conveying that information? And are we considering everything?
That question was there, and that's why I was happy to take that as the question. And I think, Julian, would you like to have a stab at that?
Yeah, happy to, Chair. So obviously, as Kelly Knotts indicated, you know, this is part of a review. We've had an integrated plan which has been discussed earlier at previous meetings around the strands and prioritisation we've got. It is an integrated programme of work across education and send, and also social care, and also health colleagues as well, playing a role in that set of arrangements. I think the question Councillor Hayward is asking is about the school estate, which I'm happy that if that's, you know, through you, Chair, if you want to get a report on that at a future date. Just need to be mindful that a large element of the estate is not within our control. It's within the academy DFE programme, as well as also the church estate as well. So it's quite a complicated question, which in theory should look simple, but it's actually quite a complex set of arrangements. If that makes sense. So that would be a significant piece of work to bring that together in that space.
Yeah, thank you. I think, like I say, we've got to be careful with our work programme, because we've got an awful lot of things that we want to cover, but we can consider that. There is no doubt. I think, like Councillor Hayward said, the school estates have been sort of underfunded and underlooked after for decades, really. So I know many schools are struggling with their estate. Councillor Bickley.
Thanks. That's better. I just wanted to add, from my perspective, when we say getting the basics right, obviously it's not a basic. It's very complicated getting that right. But what the public ought to see is that we've got the right schools in the right areas and children in the right places. That is now a strategy that we now have in place. So that's one of the many threads of this that has to align. Getting the basics right in individual schools, we do want to see more internal APs, you know, alternative provisions. We want to see money coming back into Devon schools, taking it out of the external expensive provisions. But all of these things have to come together. So this project and this update it is complicated. It is, and there are huge risks around it. But with the white paper coming out, we know that we are on the right page with that because we've had all, you know, DFE people advising us all the way through. So we are aligning with that, and I think things are starting to come together. But it is a massive piece of work, isn't it, for the team?
Donna.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. You asked the word assurance. Everything's going in the right direction. We have to produce a plan linked to the money. It's not called safety valve anymore, but we have to do that over the next period of months. Sadly, I don't think the white paper gives us the levers that we require to manage that envelope over the next few years. I think everything we're doing is absolutely going in the right direction, but the legal system does not give us the leverage required to manage that financial envelope. I think it's really important in terms of the impact that has on the cash flow of the council that everybody is aware of those challenges, and I'm quite happy that what comes back here, because it's previously gone to audit, is that connectivity between the fantastic focus on practice and partnerships, but it's always been such a challenge in terms of the broader system and that financial envelope that then impacts our organisation. So I think it's fantastic to have that injection from government. It's everybody's sigh of relief, but we could be in the same position again in 3 to 4 years' time, not at the same scale, but it's still a big risk. So you absolutely asked the right question today, and I think it's really important that, Chair, you consider how we bring that back here regularly, as well as I'm sure that Grant Thornton and their annual reports for all councils will still be looking at SEND as we go through the years ahead. So I really appreciate you making that connection today, because I think it's really important. And we can definitely bring reports back. And I think we need as much support as possible in terms of implementation of the white paper to articulate some of the challenges around about that.
Thank you all. I think the other thing to remember is that obviously through our visits, you know, part of the important thing is our engagement with parents themselves and the Devon parent what's it called, the Parent Caring Forum. So we will be receiving updates to them, so that will be useful. I've got Councillor Lodge and Councillor Trail, and if I've missed somebody, please show it.
Yeah, thanks. This particular strand is investing in Devon schools. There's no reference made in this document at all to EOTAS or to elective home education. So I'd just like to know where in the programme for SEND that sits, please.
Thank you, Councillor Lodge. So the specific work around those are it's about meeting the needs of children, as you know. So we're talking about there's still a requirement for children who can't attend schools. We can talk about EOTAS, educated other than at school. Some of the work that we're doing here around, for example, the framework around our alternative provision, which a lot of those children use, is about making that more compliant, getting best value. So that type of provision for those children is covered in here. And in terms of elective home education, the requirements in terms of provision sit with parents who choose to electively home educate. And so we are working a wider programme in inclusion and learning around elective home education more broadly, but don't have the same responsibilities for those children in law.
Okay, we've got 3 tiers. You've gone for the 3-tier model here, and the missing tier is the sort of sustained alternative provision. these three tiers are all transitional, with the idea of trying to get young people, pupils, back into mainstream school. But we know that a lot of children, this is why this three-tier process has a lot of criticism, a lot of children just should not be in mainstream school, cannot cope with mainstream school, whether it's through anxiety or other reasons. But I just don't see that even referenced in this document at all.
As mentioned, so the specifics of this strand are around the enablers. So a lot of the work that we're doing around individual children and practice sits in other strands. This three-tier model, as you'll be aware, is a national model, and it frames some of the work that we've been doing with our providers. So our first and foremost vision is that all children's needs should be met in their local mainstream school. As a principle, we know that that can't always be the case. Alternative provision in Devon, it has been used before for educating children, and they've been in alternative provision for some of our children for many years, and their outcomes actually in terms of post-16 pathways and education, employment and training, actually that provision isn't enabling them to achieve outcomes as they should. We are now starting to use alternative provision to sit alongside schools in this way, looking at time limited placements, looking at how we support to meet the needs of children in order to either move them on to the right provision, and that is a continuing provision, mainstream, specialist, or whether actually some alternative provision can deliver those interventions, which means they can be reintegrated back into mainstream. And we have some alternative providers who are very successful at that. But as a whole, this is about the whole continuum of provision, which our sufficiency strategy talks about in terms of mainstream through to specialists. This is one element of that support.
Thank you, Kelly. Oh, Julian, did you want to come in? Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. If I can just add to Kelly's point for Councillor Lodge. So I think alternative provision is, we do have to be careful of the labels in the school system and the education system. So if a child, a pupil is not able to be supported in the mainstream provision, and we agree that that's the right outcome, then obviously we'd be looking for special school provision. And you'll see on page 5, the SEND Sufficiency Strategy and Plan, which was approved by Cabinet in December 25, sets out the priority work, to strengthen mainstream education with additional resources. So where it's appropriate, the child transfers back into the mainstream provision. Where it's not appropriate for the child to be in the mainstream provision, then we can expand the specialist provision so that children have a special school place as opposed to an alternative provision place. I know that sounds strange, but alternative provision is meant to be temporary. The child is meant to either return to their mainstream provision, or we identify a specialist provision to meet their needs in that space. So that's the piece of work we need to do to address that. The issue has been in Devon, as in a number of other authorities, where actually children are drifted in alternative provision without the right interventions to support their transition through the education system and obviously into adulthood. So that's a clear priority for us to get right in this space.
Thank you, Julian. You mentioned the priority 3, and obviously the ICB are a key partner in that priority. They're not with us here, but are we satisfied that they're satisfactorily engaged in that area?
We are working. I think there's a conversation happening nationally. I'll answer that question at 2 levels, really. So at strategic level, there's a review going on nationally, which has been led by the Department of Health, to look at the whole process around assessments, the use of diagnosis. We take the view that actually it's about the child's needs, not necessarily what label they have in terms of diagnosis and what support a young person needs to have. So, and as you know, as councillors be aware, having a diagnosis, it's a range of issues and support that may be needed to getting the right intervention in place. So that's an issue happening strategically, which we are playing into in terms of the work we're doing. The second level is about what are we doing locally together. And over the last few months, there's been more effective joiner about how we work together and agreements about how we can use independent assessments outside of the NHS, which I think everyone's welcomed as a tool going forward. What's been agreed is that those assessments need to be quality assured by the NHS and for parents who are paying for those independent assessments. At the same time, the NHS locally are resourcing their capacity in that space. However, we have some concerns about changes in the NHS landscape with changes of the ICB, but also changes in the foundation trusts and how they operate in the Devon context. So we are going to go through a period of churn over the next few months about what does that look like? And both for myself and Kelly and other colleagues within Children's, we may be relating to different people than we've related to before, which I think it's a bit of an issue in terms of communication. So we are got some risks around that at the moment in terms of the continued improvement work.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I was certainly hoping that somebody would be here this morning because I think it is partnership work, true partnership work. We really do need them to attend this committee so that we are seeing a sort of whole team effort. So I just, through Louise, I think, like I say, I understand that they're going through a lot of transition, but I think it is important, as we are, we've got new priorities, new targets, and it'd be useful to be here together from the start, really, listening and hearing what the concerns and questions are. Thank you. So I've got several hands. Councillor Trell's been waiting an awful long time, then Councillor Connor, and then Councillor Julian. If we can keep the questions succinct, that would be useful.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll be very quick. Welcome to our two new staff members. But I'd also like to thank Councillor Bickley for allowing me to escort you to the Exmouth Community College, where we actually witnessed what's going on there and changed my outlook totally on SEND right across the board. It was a real eye opener, and I would say that if we had as many good teachers as the one we saw that particular day, we wouldn't have a problem in Devon. But my question is, with regards to the banding review, is the department on track for the delivery of the presentations to SEND, CEL, DEF and SEND partnership? Because you've got down here, final sign off 18th of March, that's 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. So in terms of sign off, it's been to the SEND CEL and the Strategic Partnership Board last week, and it will go to the Schools Forum, so Devon Education Forum, on the 18th for ratification there as well. So on track.
Councillor Connor.
Thank you. Actually, Julian, my eyesight's too poor to read your last name, I'm afraid, across the room. No, Worcester. He actually answered my question when he was talking. I know you said no, just first names, but I couldn't read the last.
Officers, I think we're allowed. It's more councillors.
Well, thank you. He answered my question before I even asked it. Actually, just one other quick question. Investing in Devon schools, getting the basics right. We've got a few to be confirmed dates on there. Is there any movement on that? Have we got any progress on those? It's the key milestone delivery status.
Sorry, page 10.
Yes, so this is February's update. A couple of those have changed, but some of those are actually linked to the reform plan that I talked about in terms of the work with the ICB and as a partnership that links with the white paper. So we'll be working through, like I said, in the next 14 weeks, that will become clearer in terms of the milestones, and some of that might change slightly.
Councillor Julian.
Thank you, Chair. Just that Councillor Worcester mentioned about taking the children's needs, vulnerable children, learning abilities. The question is, Chair, is that are we talking with the parents as well as you're talking about the children, so you get the right balance of these children, or is just talking to the teachers and the children? Because you need to have the parents involved in their special needs. So could you answer that, please?
Just for the record, Councillor Julian Worcester's not a councillor; he's an officer. Just that's fine. And I think we do talk to the parent carer forum, but.
Yeah, so I think again it is at several levels. So across Devon we work with the Parent Carer Forum in terms of the approach and the policy, and discuss with them. And our plans are approved through the SEND partnership, which includes colleagues from Parent Carer Forum on it, and also the Department for Education. And as you know, we have to have our plans signed off by the Department for Education in terms of that intervention. In addition, so the support for the views of children would be, and parents, are through the educational healthcare plans and the reviews we would conduct through that process. So that's the normal process for engaging on a child individual basis in terms of that support. And obviously we work with the schools about how we consult with them, or the provider, if it's alternative provider, about the input and how that works through. So there's a process, there's an appeal process, and obviously ultimately there's a complaint process if the parent's unhappy in terms of the provision being provided or the reasons around the review process.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions around the financial recovery linked to attendance. This was an eye-opener to me. It's something I hadn't really come across before or considered before. When we're talking about the number of SEND pupils in independent settings who have low attendance, and the recovery of the cost. One of my questions is just to put that into context for this 24-25 period. Is this an outlier? Is this something that happens every year? Do we always have do we have this process every year where we try and recoup costs? That's my first question.
So this is a pilot piece of work that's just started. So we haven't done this previously, but the learning from this will build into a system where we review children's attendance in all provision, which we do, but in particular in independent, to ensure that their needs are being met. So we'll build that into future ways of working from this.
Okay, thank you. So just to follow up, so it's probably, you're probably not going to be able to answer this now that I know that, but my other question was going to be, what are the risks around recovering the 370,000? And as we have just looked at the budget, was that built into the budget, this area of this financial area? And, as we haven't never presumably attempted this before, presumably we don't know how this is going to proceed in terms of the recovery, but I wondered what the likelihood of it might be and the financial side of it.
Can I just clarify? Do you mean the likelihood of bringing the money back?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So the work that we've been doing so far has been mainly with two providers, been ongoing conversations, and they've been really good conversations about actually, some of those two have identified that they should actually be returning some of that cost. So that's gone quite well so far for those two. I don't know what that's going to look like on a whole scale yet, because we haven't tried that. The other part of this work is, so for the previous safety valve plans, we've had a number of deficit management plans with a number of tasks that sit underneath that. So this work is linked to our deficit management plan. So in terms of how do we have work that supports some of the budget challenges, this is now going to be built into that going forward, and there's some work to do in terms of what that looks like that we can't confirm just yet. But so far, this piece of work that's in front of you is on track to recoup exactly what's written in the paper.
Okay, thank you.
Julian.
Chair, if I can come in there, I think just to add to what Kelly's outlined, the other aspect of the piece of work, of course, is understanding why the children aren't attending the provision. And it may be that we need to move the child to another provision which is more able to meet their needs, which may cost more money. So just to be clear, we're not saying necessarily that this is going to generate the amount in terms of the potential recoupment being at the bottom line of the budget, because we may need to spend more money elsewhere to meet a child's needs. And that's obviously a conversation about understanding where the child's at, but also where the provider is struggling to meet their needs and what further action they are taking in that aspect. Because we are talking about significant non-attendance, not just the odd few days in that space. And just, I mean, it goes back to Councillor Hayward's point earlier about making sure we're using our resources effectively and making sure that we're meeting needs at the same time. And that's the balance we've got in place. I think it's fair to say other councils have been doing this for a while. So this is new for Devon in terms of that space of work. So we're playing catch up here compared to other authorities, just to be really clear about that.
Thank you.
I want to just nip in with one myself. I've waited patiently, and then I'll come to Councillor Hayward. Thank you. So obviously it's a brilliant programme, really ambitious and clearly welcomed. What will be different for a child with SEND in Devon in 2 years' time as a result of this programme, do we see? Sort of, I might as well throw me, you know, what measurable improvement should parents expect to see, and how will we know the programme has actually succeeded? I don't know who wants to go with that.
I'll take that. The challenge with answering that question, just looking at this strand, is it's complex, isn't it? So the whole programme of work, which there are 4 strands, will lead to improvement in key performance indicators that we're tracking. So if we think about how this strand contributes to that, a lot of this is around making sure that children have the right provision, and therefore as a result of that we should expect to see improved attendance, improved outcomes in terms of attainment, or those going on into further education, employment and training. So it's linked into a wider set of KPIs that will be delivered across the programme.
Just to check, so we will see improved attendance effectively, and then that will tell us that children happier, feel more supported and in school.
So if we deliver on a number of activities within the programme, we should start to see, for example, improved attendance of our children who have special educational needs and disabilities.
Councillor Hayward, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. It's a very interesting, so this is, again, is a very interesting part of this thing. I suppose the challenges from what Mr. Worcester said, so you know, if it's not working out for that child at that particular school, then they may have to be moved to a different provision. And it was interesting that the first response was, and that may cost more. Why? It could cost less. I think it's that presumption that there's always going to be more cost. You know, and within our general school system, unauthorised absence of 0 attendance, surely that would have been monitored, that would have been checked. And, you know, we're saying now that we've only just started doing this, but we're paying out millions and millions and millions to providers and seemingly not getting the data back. And now we're tackling 2 of them to try and get back. We're not sure if we will, but try and get back this money. And again, I perhaps you can illuminate me, but where we are paying out to independent providers, are we not getting weekly reports from them? And that data can it be captured by AI? It doesn't need a person. You know, if you have the Devon Pension Service, when I submit to that, a report comes back and it's all chopped and changed, goes into a report, and then I'm sure another report is churned out. But there must be more efficient ways of capturing this data. You know, if every week they have to return a report to say we have this many pupils, this many have turned up, this many absent, it now is 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. And then we are keeping on top of our spend, because to come back to the point the CEO raised, there are always challenges. We know there are, and they're not going away, but we can keep tipping money into this service. But if there is a bigger hole at the bottom, it will always be in a deficit. You've got to try and stem your expenditure and hone in and spend better, spend more efficiently, and then the money you're pouring in the top goes further. That's just a basic rule of commerce. So I suppose from this is it's heartening to see that we are focusing on financial recovery work, but I just would like assurance through this committee, the Scrutiny Committee, that we are absolutely doing everything we can and making providers who are taking taxpayers' money into the private sector, that they are not taking advantage, because a 0% attendance with a bill still being submitted seems like taking advantage. Thank you, Chair.
You're certainly getting lots of nods around the room on the right. My right, I should say. The Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, Councillor Hayward, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And the overall strategic policy of this council now is, particularly around SEND, is all about inclusion. And so that will entail that we are spending less on alternative provision outside of the county with private companies who in some cases are totally morally bankrupt, in my view. And we should be using every way forward to reduce that the need for that. So I think that what this is part of the strategy about bringing more of those children who need our support into the mainstream school system, and that in itself will make it more efficient. It's always slightly galling to talk about monies when you're talking about children and the human cost of it, but I think that they go together actually. The more we can teach and support our children in their localities, the better for them, and also secondary, it is a financial benefit to us as well. So I appreciate that all the I's haven't been dotted, the T's crossed here, but this is just but one strand. But the overall strategy is to deal with help more of our children in the mainstream schools.
Thank you, Julian. I think that sort of leads you into one of my questions, really. I probably missed it through not reading my papers thoroughly, but I apologise if I missed it. But how many children are currently in independent placements, and what is the target for reduction? How many do we see this, the suite of programmes you like reducing those numbers by? I guess there's no absolute figure on that, but percentage maybe.
So the number that we currently have in independent sector are 1,300 children. I'm not going to commit to a number that we're going to reduce that by, because actually the challenge that we have, as you'll know, is we have to look at the individual needs of children and respond to the provision that they need and that they are assessed to have needed. One of the other strands of work within this programme, though, is looking at how we ensure that children's needs are met earlier, because what often happens is children escalate through the system and end up in independent specialist provision when at one time their needs could have been met more locally to home. So we need to do the work upstream, which will inevitably have a knock-on impact in terms of the number of children that are in independent, but we don't have a specific target as such that we're working to in the way that you might think.
No, I absolutely sort of understand. Well, no, I totally understand it is about the child and individuals, but I'm also nervous if we don't have a target, because you could come back in year, 2 years time and say, well, actually, we've not reduced any because that was their need. So, you know, there must be some sort of target that we're looking to get X amount of children. And that, like say, early help, brilliant. Is that going to happen? Still, we hear parents saying that the system's taking so long that by the time we get any support for the child, that those issues have escalated. So
yeah, so we would expect to mirror our statistical neighbours in a lot of our performance indicators. So we should be, or we are looking at the number of children in other local authorities similar to Devon to see how many children they have, and we would do that across the board. So how many in mainstream, how many in special schools, how many are independent. So that is our sort of target if we're looking at children and where they receive their provision.
Chair, I just think it's important that people understand the system change that's taking place, and the fact that the EHCPs, you just checked the document this morning, the system will run as it is to 29/30. So the national system is not going to change until then. So families have rights under that system. It's my understanding that compared to February last year, requests from EHCPs have gone up 28% more than last year. So I think it's important to say that for all the work we are doing in Devon, the whole system, the national system is not changing for a few years, and families can go through that process. And also in the consultation at the moment, the elements that we would all want to be in the local system, it's that recognition it will take a few years to right size that to support schools to get the sufficiency in place. But that increase in 28% has to be taken within, although all the work we're doing, the numbers keep increasing. That's quite a sizable increase. We don't know if that will continue through the year or if that's just a reaction to the anxiety around the white paper. But I think what's important is that we keep bringing those statistics back to you. We don't know at this moment in time if that's going to be a national increase or how it will go throughout the year, or whether it's just Devon. So I suppose what I'm saying is that things are changing around about us all the time, but a 29/30 implementation for a new system, it shows it's going to be a long process. What we do know in social care recovery is that early intervention hugely impacted in Devon within a 3-year period. But that's a system that we have a lot more leverage and control over. So I think it's really going to be, as the government are setting out, a 5 to 10 year change programme that we're looking at for the whole system.
The system for children that comes after this government's non-existence, potentially. But yeah, I don't mean that they won't be unelected, but it'll be a new government post 2029. Could be the same colour, but very frustrating. But thank you. I think I apologise if I've got this wrong, but Councillor Hookway and Councillor Connor. Did I miss anybody in that?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for letting me come back. I just wanted to say how grateful I'm to officers who explained how complex this system is. Through no fault of really anybody, it's a historic system. It's a political system, and it's not effective at all. And I was very made a note of the comment that Julie Worcester made about schools not being in our control. It's clearly a very, very challenging situation to try and manage this. So my final question really is how do we expect to manage expectations? We've had parent groups come in and say they want this, they want that. Often you meet parents that are, I want this, why isn't this happening, why isn't that happening, so on. And the strategy is the right way to go. We are moving forward, but how do we manage the expectations with parents who are not familiar with all the intricacies of the system? That's I think is going to be quite an important point for the future. Thank you, Chair.
There we are. That's why you're the boss.
But no, I think it is a complex set of issues, and I think it's still very clear that parents look to Devon County Council when they got issues with schools, even if we don't run the school, it's an academy school. So there is, and I know elected members get lots of queries about schooling issues related to special educational needs or happiness within the school system. And I think there's a problem in terms of oversight and governance of schools generally about how does this operate for parents really. And I'm not sure the white paper significantly sort of seeks to address that problem. It obviously talks about maintaining rights, and it does talk about changing some of the system in relation to complaints about schools, but I haven't seen any detail about what that would look like going forward. But the system is quite complex. So, you know, the issue sometimes is when the parents approach us to complain about the education and healthcare plan, effectively what they're complaining about is the quality of provision in the school. So we have to go back to the school. There's a lengthy process involved in that. And we do try and mediate between the school and parents sometimes to try and help them through that process. But you can imagine the scale of the, you know, the number of pupils we're concerned about as quite a challenge in this context, really. And some schools are very, very good at this. Just to be really clear about that, we got some really outstanding practice, schools that do a great job at engaging with families, dealing with issues, and we seek to support those schools as much as we can in that space. But there is also, I think, a wider, you know, expectation around schools, which schools are struggling to deliver, even those schools are performing very well. And I'm struck by authorities which are seen as very good. Schools in the area are very good, yet they still have a lot of challenge from parents. So we've still got some issues about public expectation of the school system more generally, and what's the role of schools, you know, in our modern society, really, which I'm not sure that I'm qualified to comment on. But there is a wider issue, I think, around which I don't think the white paper is anywhere near addressing in that space.
Thank you. And I think, you know, that's why we've chosen the school. You know, we're going to this afternoon. Yeah, they're recognised as good in this space, and you know, by seeing good, hopefully that will help us, which sort of visit our own schools and our divisions, or going to further schools to you know, be able to recognise what good is. Getting across the door of schools is becoming a challenge, as we've learned ourselves, because poor old Max and Louise have spent an awful lot of time trying to get us into a school, and you know, especially trying to get into schools that look good. So I have no idea when the email goes out to other schools how lucky it will be. But I think, you know, it's a problem of academisation again, isn't it? Seems the doors have been shut. We know best, and there's no going to be any scrutiny of you know, what that public money's being spent on. It seems to just fall on this council, you know, a lot of the time, and actually there needs to be effective and better scrutiny of schools themselves. And that's a personal opinion, but got me on my horse now. Denise. Councillor Bickley.
Thank you. I was just going to paint the rest of the picture as well around the inclusion mentor that we've got coming in. He's here already, Mark Vickers from the Olive Academy Trust. So that will sort of crowbar a little bit into the academies and ensure that they're all working together. We've got our inclusion and learning team who are working with schools to get that better relationship constantly, finding out, you know, the needs of the children and making sure that that things are working early. And in the white paper, it talks about the experts around the children, you know, the team of experts. And I think that's the way we're going as well. We're making much better relationships with our health workers, social workers, and everything. I think for a long time, teachers have been everything. They've been expected to pick up all that slack in that area. And you know, the teams around the child have not been there. So all of these things have to align. So I just wanted to make that point, that I think that we are getting towards that. It's nowhere near it yet, but it's aligning in the right direction, I think. So. And what I actually was going to say, sorry, we had a communications workshop the other day, which was all the SEND team, and we had parent carer partners working with us. And I think that close relationship really does mend some massive rifts, because they could see that the SEND team wanted the best for those children as well. But you know, there's been a huge narrative of it being so fragmented and so against each other all the time. But when you come together in a room and you realise that people are working for the benefit of those children, I think a real huge amount of good work was done from that, and that then cascades out to other parents who recognise that just because you put your head above the parapet and you join with the county council to do some work, it doesn't mean that you've suddenly switched sides. It actually means that we're all trying to fix the system. So more work like that is definitely needed.
Thank you. I'm being warned that we're running over time. So I think I've got Councillor Connor to indicate, and then I will wrap up after that.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask if you've got any comments about the page 22 provider feedback. Like, for instance, kids placed in placements that are never going to work anyway due to travel, or kept on roll despite not attending.
Page 16 of remember what we're calling this, like of the Strand 1 invested in Devon schools by getting the basics right. So it's actually the slides, if you like. So it's page 16 of the slides. Bottom paragraph.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. So some of the children that are in our independent sector, what this talks about is those children that have been placed there who we know actually the placement won't ever meet their needs. Some of that is linked to tribunal placements. So where the tribunal, for example, will place a child in an independent provision that we don't agree with based on the assessment of need, and then we can see actually that some of those haven't been successful in the way that might have been intended. And so that's one of the challenges that we've got, which that relates to.
Thank you, members and officers, and particularly the cabinet members. I didn't particularly welcome you this morning, Mr. Act, but really do appreciate your answers and your time. I think we're noting the report, but I think, Louise, we did really pick up about the ICB and their participation. So just wonder if you some.
Yeah, we had a conversation before the Scrutiny Committee. Obviously, you mentioned, Chair, that this is a multi-agency partnership approach to the SEND transformation programme, and the strategic plan for the council was also based on partnership working. So we talked about before the committee, we talked about whether the committee would like to write to the Integrated Care Board colleagues and just set out the committee's expectation that we would like them to attend when invited, particularly where the items with which the vast majority for Children's Scrutiny Committee overlap with responsibilities across multiple partners. So really an initial letter just to remind them of when the Scrutiny Committees are for the next over the next year. Yeah, that's what you've asked me to do beforehand, if that's okay.
And are the committee happy for me to do that? Okay. So do we need to take a formal vote for that, or?
If you want to.
Okay, so I'm happy to move that from the chair. Councillor lodged a second, and those in favour? Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you again all. Step over the page. So item 12 is our, sorry, it's not item 12 at all. Item number 8 is our children's scrutiny visit to Exeter and East Devon social care teams. So that was when we were over there in that building upstairs somewhere with nice blue walls, and very good visit, and the staff were incredible, as we know, but very inspiring and very welcoming, and it was very nice of them to welcome us, and we picked up lots of good information. So I don't know if Councillor Jeffries, did you want to say anything on this?
I was trying to think what to say in terms of introduction to this, and I think I would have said something very similar to you, Councillor Biederman. Welcome that this process has happened, and that the Scrutiny Committee have had an opportunity to meet with practitioners and get a really good understanding of the landscape and how things work, and an opportunity to engage with as many people as possible. So yeah, just very much welcome that, and look forward to any thoughts you had on that one or any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, and obviously this followed our visit to North Devon, and we're going to talk Totnes. In the
I
next
think we're arranging that at the moment next week.
next week. We're off to Totnes. Yeah, just got that one organised. So you'd be very welcome to join us if you wished.
Thank you, Chair. I know we spoke about the possibility of me coming along as an observer as well, because it's if there's something like that being organised, it would be very valuable to me as well. Thank you.
So we'll make sure officers invite. Focus, and obviously this is a focus of ours right throughout the work programme. So thank you. Questions, members. So Councillor Trail.
Thank you very much, Chair. 2.2, background and introduction. We should be clapping and slapping ourselves on the back here. We've got newly qualified social workers. I'd like to see that, newly qualified apprentice social workers, because this is a public notice that's going out and people would be looking at that. And my second point is recruitment and retention. It came apparent to me that we did have an in-house apprenticeship trainer who successfully trained 5 people. But in my view, that person was under a lot of pressure as well, because they were continuing to do their own caseload works. And I would see that as, over time, there could be burnout of that particular individual. So my question is, may I ask if the ability to train in-house could be delivered by a standalone trainer stroke assessor, and if possible within our workforce to increase the efficiency of the training and trainer. Thank you.
We haven't got. I mean, obviously Becky's unable to be with us this morning, so probably. I mean, Julian, if you want to stab or Richard.
I was going to say I'll probably divert to Julian for the technicalities of how that would be achieved inside the workforce, and Becky if she was here. But yeah, thank you for the question. I'll divert to Julian for that.
Yeah, we have an academy programme which Councillor Trail is commenting on in terms of that. And it's fair to say that we've over-recruited a number of trainee social workers. So that's put pressure on the capacity of the academy to support all that development. However, we are recognising that in certain areas, so Exeter, the team he visited, is under significant staffing pressure. So we are providing extra support to those teams. So that view is taken into account in terms of how we operate. The best, most effective way to support newly qualified social workers is to have support within the team structure or within the office structure, so that it provides that ongoing support and guidance, particularly where teams are under pressure. So, yeah, to recognise that. And I think, you know, we are supporting staff in that challenge as much as possible, but we are, you know, making progress generally. So we're recruiting in terms of social workers and team managers across the county. Particularly, you know, we had a particular problem in the north, but actually that has now been addressed. So we are working around elements of the teams which are under pressure. And importantly, this is a significant change from, you know, a few years ago where we had the majority of the workforce were agency social workers. That has now shifted totally. And we're in a position where.
Can I don't normally stop an officer.
Yep, that's okay.
Just to remind members, this is basically to get on record our notes of our visit, and then there'll be appropriate times as we go forward. You know, what will help us do is when we get reports back in future to enable us to ask questions. And you know, we've got that first-hand frontline series. This is just really to note this report that we have done the visit. This is what we've found. We want to get it on the record, so that's what we're doing today. Not sort of, I guess, scrutinising. So can ask questions, of course, but just but that's my understanding. I might be wrong, but.
Yeah, Chair, I think you're correct to stop me there in mid-flow. I think in a sense, the question is for you, Chair, is whether you want to report on the academy programme, which will have more of that detail and the capacity questions and challenge in that aspect rather than me sort of giving, you know.
So I think Councillor Charles is absolutely right. It is definitely putting real pressure on already social workers who are high caseload. And I think the other point that came out, I think, you know, I raised it in January, I believe, is that apprenticeship program a rolling program? Because I've seen, you know, I think we heard that there was gaps. So, you know, they a big influx 1 year and then 3 years later, you'd have to wait 3 years before there's another program. But I think that's something to pick up going forward. I certainly raised it previously, and it's something obviously be more. Yeah, now I've got to bring Councillor Trail back.
Thank you. Yes, this is a paper to share our learning, but then we need to also make sure that the points that have been raised are brought to the officers and to the executive to try and make this a little bit better for our staff and also for the service right across the board. So I take your point, Julian, with regards to mentoring, but that's a separate issue. You mentor within the department, but when it comes to the actual training of those particular individuals, and apprenticeships, we can go from level 2 or level 1 up to level 7. If we do that within house, we can then retain more staff, and within Devon County Council, those personnel can be promoted in-house so that we keep the good people that we've got. That's what I was trying to get at, although it may not have come across that way. I do apologise.
No, it's good. Like I say, Councillor Carroll, I think we, this is why the work programme is going to be really important. We do follow up on that and at the appropriate time. I can see Councillor Julian's hands going up. So go on, Councillor Julian.
No, thank you, Chair. I think when we did that visit over there, I think they all agreed that this was an ongoing project where the training is going to, with the new recruits that we're going to have, which was absolutely ideal. And I think that it was mentioned that the follow-up will be updated all the time, so where we can have a more thorough discussion over it. But excuse me, but to obviously get rid of dare I say, the agencies and have it in-house, which would be more beneficial for the whole council. So yes, I quite agree. That's how I think I've led to believe, and I think everybody agreed with that, Chair. Thank you.
Chair, can I just say something on that?
We're really struggling for time here.
I do understand, but we said get rid of the agencies. The agency staff are doing a good job, but I understand it's the financial side of things. So I just want to protect those persons who are working for us.
No, that is a really good point. And like I say, all staff are working incredibly hard. It's just making sure, and there's been fantastic progress in our growing our own programme, and that, hopefully doesn't mean they're not working hard or doing a good job. Thank you.
Chair, really must not take the opportunity to celebrate the fact that the children's team and everything they're doing in workforce optimisation, which is about best value, is about quality, is about training support, have been shortlisted with our People and Culture Directorate for as a finalist in a national award for this. Equally so, what will come through to provide more assurance in the months ahead, as we've been through an extensive CPC last week, and I'm delighted with the results that are not public yet. So that external lens and what we're doing with the workforce, and on top of that, further Ofsted monitoring visits. So it's just to assure you that there's a lot of external lenses looking at the workforce too. But clearly that bit of looking at what I can say in discussions with the team is that we're very focused on the locality teams and making sure we've got the right support at the right time. As you've heard from the director today, that can change mid-year, but it is on the agenda to keep a line of sight on that through visits and through feedback. And we will look at all of that as we go forward into next year to consider if we're getting it right. And also for the young trainees coming through, I've witnessed in this building lots of engagement with them and learning. So we do thank you for your feedback. And it does change from time to time, but we can maybe come back with a more summative report at some point later in 2026.
And I think from a bit of a personal interest, not really a personal interest, but good to hear the North, you know, the situation up in North is improving, because they really were under the pump up there. So that's fantastic news. So members, I think we're asked to note this report. And again, thank you to all for attending, for the staff that welcomed us, and obviously the actions that come out of that. So that's really useful. Thank you. Item 9, which is the report of the activities of the fostering champion. So, Councillor Julian, did you want to introduce this one? And thank you for all you're doing.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I've been to some training, and I've also been to some of the meetings that we've had. The proposals that I've listened carefully for the foster carers, their serious issues that they've had. It is slowly turning around. I think we've had some inquiries, about 23, I understand. It's like a super tanker. It's not going to happen overnight, that is for sure. But I've had words with, well, I'm having words actually is the better way of phrasing it, with, I put a thing forward to the district council to ask them about housing and about reducing the community charge if they were going to be full-time carers, which they are, to encourage them and to encourage others to stay in it. And also, if you're a part-time one, you could get part-time relief and weekend relief, whatever. So it's been very positive, actually, Chair. Trying to encourage other district councillors. I'm starting off with my own patch first. If anybody else has on the district council, I would be gladly to go there to encourage the councillors, because it is a very important thing with the vulnerable children and with a fantastic job that these parents are looking after the children. I mean, I can't sort of emphasize enough how important this is. And I feel that we've done what I've been doing at the moment. I think has been fantastic, and I hope that you've I've seen the report, and we're going to move it, even accelerate it further, Chair. So I think that's where we are at the moment. Okay, I think we've also, before I rain off, is that I think we've got also a meeting with the under fives or something rather, with the children, isn't it? So that's coming on, I understand, on Friday. So we are really committed, as they say, to get this all up and running and a good report back. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, Councillor Julian. Thank you for your enthusiasm and passion for this. It really is appreciated. Obviously, we're asked to note the report. There will be a fuller report coming forward in our work programme. So, Louise,
yeah, don't want to cross over into the work programme item too much, although it is the next item on the agenda. But obviously, the work that Councillor Julian is doing is recognising there's a huge amount that Scrutiny could be doing in the area of children's services overall. Obviously, fostering was identified at the beginning as a key priority for this committee. So we've got Councillor Julian's working closely with Councillor Jeffreys as well. And thank you, Councillor Jeffreys, for working with Councillor Julian and Councillor Julian with Councillor Jeffreys. It was identified as an area to keep an eye on. Obviously, Scrutiny can't do everything. It's something that you want to maintain good scrutiny on. So in terms of the role, it's about identifying where Scrutiny can have value moving forward by being that link partner in between. So if there is anything to bring onto the work programme, we will be work programming very soon, very soon. Obviously, 2 items on the agenda is considered good practice, and it needs to be where scrutiny can add value. So if there's an area where you think that, that fostering or scrutiny needs to look at in that space, then Councillor Julian has the opportunity to bring that forward to the committee then. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. When I have spoken to the foster carers, they are very enthusiastic for the first time. You know, they've always said, oh, yeah, it's the same old, but they are now grabbing the mantle, so to speak, because, you know, with what we've said and about sorting out the paperwork and everything like that, which has been an absolute nightmare for them, and how they're being looked after as well once they have these new vulnerable children. They feel that they're wanted, and that is what it is. It's encouraging these people and feeling wanted, because if you're not feeling wanted as the parents, then we're just not going to move this forward. And they are now. It's fantastic what I hear. It is happening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I mean, I think obviously, Julian, you pass that back and Richard through the teams, because, you know, it's good to hear that, you know, officers are engaging and working well in that space, because they do an incredible job. I've said it many times that our foster carers, kinship carers, special guardians are some of the most, you know, there's a lot of special people in this world, but they really do an incredible job and looking after, you know, lots of vulnerable children, but these really are the most vulnerable. So thank you.
Yeah, can I just thank members for their support in this area? It's, you know, fostering is about a corporate parenting commitment, and not just with the county council, but whether you want to encourage that across the district councils and obviously other public bodies like the NHS as well. And just to give you some performance update, we've recruited 45 kinship foster carers this year. So that gives you some scale. It's not enough, but we need to recruit more. So we've got a challenge still in this space to recruit foster carers, because there's some children who are in residential care should really be in foster care. We had the right foster carers to support them. So there's still a lot of work to do in this space. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think through Louise, you'll be getting another email from me, because I'm sort of interested in the different sort support packages to each. So thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Julian. Oh, Councillor Lodge, go on. Just about.
It's all right. It's just a very, very quick point. But when I was talking to Daniel Moncrief recently, somebody in my district wants to foster. They don't have a house that's big enough, but I understand that within the last 6 months or so, a grant scheme has become available within DCC, or as a project which will allow people to adapt their homes to enable them to foster. I just thought it was worth mentioning, because I didn't know anything about it, but I've recently found out about it.
Just to confirm that's accurate. So there has already previously been the scheme existing, but it wasn't an organised scheme. It was an ad hoc sort of arrangement. So we're making that clear to the members, you know, to foster carers through the inquiry process, that if they need to expand their property, then there's a ways we can support them in that process as well. So we're very clear about that, because as we know, there's a housing shortage, and particularly, you know, where we need spare bedrooms for children, then we can support that development. Yeah.
I think you've sort of raised almost a hornet's nest, but you did say it'd be useful for that to be shared. I don't want to get into a protracted debate about it this morning, but I think really interested. So it would be interesting to know more about that. I think it's important that it is widely shared, but also I guess there's a few questions in my head running around already, like how do we, if we make that sort of investment, how do we ensure we get a long-term return on it, and just get one placement and then they've got an extension to the house? But you know, yeah. Richard, then Donald, I really do need to close the.
Thank you, Chair. It's just on the piece around extra rooms for foster carers. That was something that when I became aware of it, it's been put out in the newsletter for foster carers as well to make them aware of it. And I've been following up on looking at how that system is portrayed to foster carers as well, so that we can see how much benefit we can get out of that. I think Donna's keen to come in on some point on that as well, so I'll leave it at that.
Just like we've heard from a member today, that, you know, that's vital information, and it can change lives. There is guidance around about it, but, you know, sometimes, Chair, communications coming from committee to members has a bigger impact in some of the newsletters. So I'd ask you, Chair, to consider that putting as all members are corporate parents. It would be fantastic if you could take it upon yourself, the Vice Chair, to circulate this if we put something together. And I think it's important to say that when you compare forget the kind of quality of being in a foster care, and you know how fantastic that is, but any form of costs are nothing compared to what we'd end up, as we're hearing today, children going into residential care. So I'm absolutely assured that this is the right thing to do. It's seen as best practice nationally, and if we could get more people in Devon to step into this space, particularly because of the housing challenges, it would be a really fantastic thing that we could do. So we'd love your support with this, Chair.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it is fantastic. I think, you know, it's shame it's come up then, but I think you know, we do get shared an awful lot of information in amongst, you know, great big long emails and reports. So it is something I think, you know, we've heard it this morning. Let's talk to each other in our groups and colleagues to make sure they're aware of it. And Louise, I think we'll make sure that it's shared to us that exactly what the scheme is and what it's doing. And like I say, if we can, word of mouth is probably better than something that's in a report and an email.
Sorry, Chair, I was just going to say that same thing. It is one of those things. I think it'd be great for a feedback loop of that extra exposure by councillors on a wider platform, seeing results, and it's also something we can track through and see happening. So it's incredibly important for children and young people, foster carers, and something that we can see direct input that we're doing as members having an effect as well. So I think there's a virtuous feedback loop on that one.
There's so much that needs sharing, isn't there? That's the problem. You know, everything is really, really important because it's children at the end of the day, and they're the ones that we really want a positive impact. So thank you, Councillor Lodge, for raising that, and you know, we will see how best we can. Yeah, how do we share all this information that's there that all members need to know and parents? But I've got another hand.
It's very quick. If I could request, if anyone could do, perhaps one of the officers could do, is a little one-page advert, a little A4 advert, not advertising a particular event, but advertising being a foster care and links that we can attach at the end of our monthly newsletters we send out to all our parish councils, and we could also send it out to parish councils to go in their parish magazine. Something really simple, but not a particular event, just a general one.
What you're saying is, I think sometimes it'd be better rather than a great big newsletter that we're expected to read, you know, bullet points about different issues that are happening, because then it will engage a member, you know, even if it's just 2-3 lines in an email, if it engages a member that they're interested. No, I'm going to close it because we really are under real pressure to get to this school visit on time. So, yeah, sorry.
That's okay. So just to say that we've got our comms colleague at the end of the table. Comms, I know, have been working really closely with the service around developing material to go out. I think everybody would have received their council tax bills recently. I certainly did, and the fostering leaflet was in my council tax bill, so I know that they exist. So I'll work with comms and colleagues in the service just to make sure that in the member bulletins and you've got access to those sort of PDFs if that's helpful to send out. Also on that, Chair, just to conclude the item, I think Councillor Jeffries, yourself and Councillor Julian, if we can get that information out to all members as in your role as corporate parents around the scheme that is to promote fostering and support people with their housing. I think that's probably the two recommendations, really broadly speaking, coming from this item today. Okay, just to close that one off.
Happy with that, members? So we're noting the report, thanking Councillor Julian again, and those two items about how we engage and circulate information. Okay, thank you. All happy? Do we need a vote? One more mover and seconder? Quickly, Councillor Wilson, Councillor Julian's moved it. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Wilson. All those in favour? Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you again. So item, oh, it never says item. Yeah, and I think it's item 10 is the work programme. and scrutiny work programme, over to you, Louise.
Yeah, just to say, Chair, we talked on this a little bit. So like I said, we'll be work programming moving forward. We've identified an area that the committee's focused in on. So in January, you had the update on priority 4 of the SEND programme, which was building inclusive learning communities. You've had priority 1 today, which is about investing in Devon schools to get the basics right. In June, we've been working towards looking at the attainment and outcomes for young people, because all of this ties back into the young people's attainment at school, attendance at school, and their overall outcomes, which is part of your corporate parenting responsibilities. This is a really key area. You've talked about the schools estate today, which also ties into some of that. So we've been looking at that ahead. You've mentioned a number of things today that the Scrutiny Committee could consider, but as a collective, we'll work together as a team in terms of developing the work programme moving forward. Chair's already mentioned that we've reached out to the Parent Carer Forum Devon, and we've also reached out to the participation team to ensure that the voices of children, families and young people and carers are embedded within the work programme moving forward. So we're working to ensure that those voices you're hearing on a regular basis on the strategic areas to inform your scrutiny moving forward. I'll send out more information about how to develop a work programme. A lot of this is tied into the strategic plan as well, but I'll be in touch on that one if that's okay, Chair, in more detail. Obviously, if there's anything that people want to raise on the work programme, please do get in touch. I know Councillor Hookway's been in touch with me this week, and we're trying to move forward on something, considering an item there.
So good at scrutinising the main item. I think like I say, the visits for me are really important. The frontline practitioners, I think that was really about the front door, what the experience is there, and to meet those staff, the sort of unsung heroes, if you like, that are dealing with those at front door. So any questions on the work programme? Wonderful, thank you very much. So that's noted, isn't it? Finally, it's the matters for information, which I assume is item 11. Just moving on there. Members, any questions on those? Answer. Thank you. Can formally close the meeting, and thank you all for your attendance. Max, did you want to say anything on the school visit that we're about to go off on? We can do that. So those of us that are going on the school visit, if we have a little huddle, then we'll discuss transport arrangements, obviously try and minimise the amount of cars that were taken over, but obviously considering what your onward journey looks like. So thank you all. Have a good rest of the week, and thank you very much for your time.